Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services online public input session on establishing a solid waste general permit program in part Env-SW 308 of the New Hampshire Code of Administrative Rules for Solid Waste Management. This public input session, including the associated comment period, is being held in advance of the formal rulemaking process to provide a broad opportunity for all interested parties to share their ideas and concerns regarding the proposed solid waste general permit rules. Please note that there will be future opportunities to provide public comment during the formal rulemaking process. In addition to today's session, we encourage attendees to submit comments in writing to DES before July 25th, 2023 at 4 p.m. My name is Leah McKenna, and I am the Administrator of the Solid Waste Management Bureau in the Waste Management Division of the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. I'll be moderating this public input session. Please note that during this session, we may refer to the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services as NHDES, the department, or DES. The agenda for this meeting is shown on the slide. First, I'll introduce the team we have here today and provide some guidance on using the GoToWebinar software. Then we'll hear from Jamie Colby, who will give us a brief description of the existing solid waste rules and statute. Then Laurel Pushy will present the department's ideas regarding how the general permit program may function and the categories of facilities it may cover. This will be followed by an opportunity for public input. This meeting will end no later than 4 p.m. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to the team that we have supporting this public input session. From the Solid Waste Management Bureau, we have Jamie Colby, Laurel Pushy, and Emily Jones. Also with us today is Mike Wimsat, the Waste Management Division Director. In addition, assisting us in running the software for this meeting are Tara Albert of the Solid Waste Management Bureau and Julie Ashton of the Waste Management Division. Please reach out to Julie Ashton if you have technical difficulties with the GoToWebinar software. As previously stated, the purpose of today's public input session is to provide a broad opportunity for all interested parties to share their ideas and concerns regarding the proposed solid waste general permit program rules in advance of DES's work of drafting the proposed rules. This public input session is not required by statute or rule, but we wanted to provide an informal opportunity for the public to propose ideas for the general permit program prior to starting the formal rulemaking process. Once the formal rulemaking process starts, we will propose specific rule language on which the public can comment. We do not have specific proposed rule language at this time, just ideas under consideration. The general permit program is proposed to be established in part Env-SW 308 of the solid waste rules. Part 308 currently is reserved and it has no rule text or language. DES intends to include the general permit program in the readoption process for the overall chapter Env-SW 300. And this chapter is set to expire on July 1st, 2024. To ensure that the proposed general permit program will be included in the readoption of chapter Env-SW 300, DES must have drafted proposed rules soon. I'd like to note that before we continue, a public input session on the other parts of chapter Env-SW 300 was held by us in June, and a link to a recording of that session as well as previous sessions is available in the handouts section of the GoToWebinar dashboard. All participants joining us online have the opportunity to listen and will be able to speak when invited through the GoToWebinar platform. Telephone-only participants will not be able to provide input verbally because the GoToWebinar platform does not see you unless you are logged into the software. However, telephone-only participants are encouraged to submit written comments in accordance with the notice for this public input session. At this time, I'm going to provide an introduction to the GoToWebinar platform that we are using for this meeting. When you are logged in to GoToWebinar, you will see an orange rectangle with a white arrow typically found in the upper right corner of your screen. Clicking this arrow will show the GoToWebinar dashboard. The dashboard has a section titled Audio, where you can make adjustments to your audio settings, and a section titled Handouts, where you can download a copy of the notice for this public input session, a copy of today's presentation slides, and a memorandum containing links to previous public input sessions on DES's current solid waste rule readoption efforts. You can also use the raise hand function if you need the attention of the software manager. On the slide that we are showing now, you will see a questions section. This is where you will enter your name if you have a comment or question when it is time for the public to provide input. As of now, that is turned off and we will enable it later. And I will repeat these instructions again when we open the floor for public input. Right now, all attendees are muted with no video feed, and you should be able to see and hear me. Online attendees will remain in this state until we open the floor for input. If you need assistance with GoToWebinar, we have Julie Ashton of DES standing by to help. I will read her phone number and email address now, and her contact information will be posted on the screen intermittently throughout the session. You can reach Julie by phone at area code 603-271-7837 or by email at julie.a.ashton@des.nh.gov. And now Jamie Colby will provide a brief introduction to the existing solid waste rules and statute. And then following Jamie's introduction, Laurel Pushy will present the department's ideas regarding how the general permit program may function and the categories of facilities it may cover. Jamie?
Thank you, Leah. Good afternoon, everyone. As Leah stated, my name is Jamie Colby, and I'm supervisor of the Engineering and Permitting section in the Solid Waste Management Bureau at DES. I would like to start by briefly explaining the existing solid waste rules and some obligations in the solid waste statute or law, and then I will turn the presentation over to Laurel Pushy to present the department's ideas regarding the solid waste general permit program. The solid waste rules interpret and implement the requirements in RSA 149M, the Solid Waste Management Act. These rules effectively instruct DES and parties interested in solid waste management how to carry out the requirements in the statute. As such, the rules tend to be much more detailed than the statute, as they need to provide more concrete how-to information. It is important to understand a bit about the structure of New Hampshire's solid waste rules. The solid waste rules are layered, like a pyramid, one on top of another. For those who have attended previous public input sessions, this pyramid should look familiar. At the base of our pyramid, we have rules about definitions, processes, and procedures. These are rules that describe how to implement the solid waste program and permitting system required by statute. On top of that foundation, we have rules applicable to all solid waste facilities. These are known as the universal facility requirements. For example, all solid waste facilities are required to be operated in a manner that controls to the greatest extent practicable litter, odor, and noise. On top of the universal requirements, we have rules applicable only to permitted facilities. These are known as the additional facility requirements. For example, all permitted facilities are required to file annual reports. Finally, we have rules about specific types of solid waste facilities. Note that there are only 3 types of solid waste facilities: collection, storage, and transfer facilities where the waste comes in and the waste goes out, processing and treatment facilities where waste comes in and a product and a waste go out, and landfills where waste comes in and waste stays. This afternoon, we are specifically seeking input on ideas for the Solid Waste General Permit Program. The Solid Waste General Permit Program will add another permitting option to Chapter Env-SW 300. That's a foundational rule chapter in the lowest level of our rules pyramid. Currently, the solid waste rules require each entity that wants to operate a solid waste facility to seek an individual permit. There are 4 types of individual permits: a standard permit, an emergency permit, a research and development permit, and a permit by notification. To obtain an individual permit, a business, municipality, or person needs to submit an application to DES. The department must review the application, and if the application is approved, a permit is custom written for the proposed facility and issued. The general permit program, on the other hand, is proposed to establish an option where the department writes one permit and entities choose to register for and use that one permit. As such, general permits are defined in the solid waste statute as a permit which contains terms and conditions applicable to a specific category of facility, which applies to any facility in that category which has submitted the required information and agreed to abide by the stated terms and conditions. However, the definitions section in the solid waste statute, RSA 149M, is not the only place that general permits are identified or recognized as a permitting option. RSA 149M6 identifies that the department shall have the responsibility and authority to regulate facilities through administration of a permit system, which may include the establishment of general permits to cover categories of facilities which involve the same or substantially similar types of operations, handle the same types of waste and regulated substances, require the same operating limitations or conditions, and are more appropriately controlled under a general permit than under individual permits. General permits are also identified in RSA 149M9, RSA 149M59, and RSA 149M60, which statutory provisions are specific to the department's responsibility to develop general permits for motor vehicle salvage or recycling facilities and motor vehicle crushers. As you can see, the solid waste statute provides authority to establish a general permit program, some basic criteria for when a general permit may be established, and obligates the department to establish a general permit for motor vehicle salvage facilities and motor vehicle crushers. Now, Laurel Pushy will discuss the ideas under consideration by DES for establishment and implementation of the solid waste general permit program. Laurel?
Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, everyone. As Jamie stated, my name is Laurel Pushy, and I'm an environmental scientist in the Compliance Assurance section in the Solid Waste Management Bureau at DES. My primary responsibilities include administering the regulatory and compliance programs for petroleum-related solid waste industry sectors, including the motor vehicle salvage yard industry and the scrap metal industry. As discussed, the department's considering the establishment of the General Permit Program in Part Env-SW 308 of the Solid Waste Rules. The proposed General Permit Program would establish a new permitting option to reduce the administrative burden while ensuring consistency in regulating solid waste facilities. DS proposes that the general permit system be organized around category-specific facility types, such as motor vehicle salvage yards or scrap metal facilities. A general permit will only be available for specific types or categories of facilities and will not be a broad-based replacement for existing permit types. Rather, the general permit will be another option for some types of or categories of facilities. The General Permit Program rules will outline and describe the process the department must follow to establish, modify, suspend, and revoke general permits. In addition, the program rules will identify the process for a facility owner to register to use a general permit. I would like to note that we will not be addressing any of the details for any category-specific general permits today. That is, we won't be discussing potential terms and conditions of any category-specific general permits, only how a general permit program may function. Before we go into some of the details, I'd like to briefly discuss how the solid waste general permit program is supposed to function overall. First, DES would determine whether a facility category meets the criteria for a general permit, and if so, the facility category would be added to the solid waste rules through the formal rulemaking process. Then DES would draft a general permit for the established facility category. A public hearing, including a written comment period, would be held for the proposed general permit. After reviewing public comments, DES would decide whether to issue or withdraw the proposed general permit. If issued, interested parties can choose to register to use the established general permit. Finally, the department is not proposing any fees be associated with the solid waste general permit program. Understanding that a general permit will be established and implemented somewhat differently than other solid waste permits, the department proposes to structure the general permit program rules similarly to other solid waste permitting rules in order to maintain as much consistency as possible between the issuance of solid waste permit types. Like other permit types, DES proposes that the general permit program rules should include a purpose and applicability statement, which will set the stage for the general permit program. The program rules should include criteria for establishing facility categories and general permits. But as discussed previously, we do not anticipate including the details of specific terms and conditions for category-specific general permits in the rules. The criteria for establishing a general permit category should incorporate the requirements already identified in RSA 149M6, Roman numeral 3, including that the facility categories must involve the same or substantially similar types of operations and handle the same types of wastes. DES proposes that a list of facility categories, which will be discussed later, should also be included in the program rules, with some categories included with the initial proposal. The program should also include procedures for establishing, modifying, or revoking a general permit, including a description of how a decision is made on whether to issue or withdraw a general permit. Further, the program rules should include the grounds for revocation or modification of a general permit. The department proposes that a public hearing be required during the establishment or modification of a general permit. DES does propose to include a few exceptions to requiring a public hearing, such as for modifications that are clerical or clarifying in nature. The proposed rules should also provide information on how to appeal a general permit. The proposed rules should identify that general permits must contain terms and conditions applicable to the category-specific facility type covered by a general permit. Specifically, the program rules should identify that a general permit must include terms and conditions that address the design, construction, operation, public benefit, facility maintenance and monitoring, reporting, financial responsibility, and closure of a facility administered under a general permit. This is the same as an individual permit having terms and conditions that a permittee must follow. For individuals, municipalities, or businesses that want to use a particular general permit, the rules should identify how they register their facility with the department. The proposed rules should identify the registration form an individual, municipality, or business must complete and submit to DES. The program rules should require registrants use a registration form to ensure that they're providing the information necessary for DES to make a decision as to whether the registrant can be authorized to use a particular general permit. And the rules should provide processing requirements for the registration. Once the registration has been filed with and processed by the department, the program rules should identify how DES will communicate to the registrant whether they're authorized to use the general permit for which they filed their registration. The program rules should include actions the department can take to revoke or suspend a permittee's authorization to operate under a general permit. Specifically, the program rules should include procedures that DES must follow and the grounds known as good cause for revoking or suspending authorization under a general permit. As discussed previously, DES proposes that the general permit program be organized around category-specific facility types. Facility categories that DES thinks should be established immediately are those required in the Solid Waste Management Statute, RSA 149M. As such, the department proposes the initial program rules should include motor vehicle salvage facilities and motor vehicle crushers. By including these two facility categories with the initial proposed rulemaking, DES should be able to begin drafting a general permit sooner and will not need to revisit rulemaking to add these general permit categories. In addition to those categories required by statute, DES has identified several other categories of facilities that would work well under the general permit program. The department is considering extending the categories to include scrap metal facilities, municipal roadway soils, custodial care of landfills, and electronic waste management. We would be interested in hearing your thoughts on other categories of facilities that should be considered for the general permit program. Remember, you can download these slides from the handout section in your GoToWebinar dashboard, and we plan to post them to the Solid Waste Management webpage on the DES website within the next few business days. The recording of this presentation will also be posted to NHDES's YouTube channel. The rules in the solid waste statute are available online through either the DES website or the state legislature's website. Links to those are included in the last slide in this presentation. Thank you for listening. I really hope this presentation has helped provide some context for the proposed general permit program that NHDES is considering. I look forward to any questions and ideas that you can share with us. Leah?
Thank you, Loie. In a few moments, we will take a break. However, I would like to go over the ground rules for providing public input first. Our objective this afternoon is to give everyone who wishes to speak a reasonable opportunity to do so. After you have provided your name in accordance with the instructions, I will call on people to speak in the order displayed on the screen. Based on the number of attendees, I request that you limit your time to 4 minutes. I will attempt to alert you at the 3-minute mark. Please graciously yield the floor within 4 minutes so that I can call the next speaker in line. During hearings, we are frequently asked whether a speaker can yield their time to another speaker of their choice. This practice will not be allowed during this session. Instead, we intend to proceed through the list of names to give everyone the time they need to provide their comments. In other words, the person you might wish to yield your time to will have plenty of opportunity to provide input. They will just need to add their name into the question box and wait for their turn in line. When I call your name, if you decide you do not wish to speak at that time, please let me know and we will place your name at the end of the list to be called on after all other speakers have cycled. As we've mentioned, written comments may be submitted in writing to DES at any time before Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 at 4 p.m. instead of or in addition to providing comments at this public input session. Please submit comments using either DES's mailing address or by email at swmbrules@des.nh.gov. Please note that there will be future opportunities to provide public comment during the formal rulemaking process. Please listen closely to the following instructions on how to provide oral comments using GoToWebinar. And as a reminder, these instructions are not applicable to our telephone-only attendees who are in listen-only mode. For oral comments, we will enable the GoToWebinar question function. Using this function, you will let DES know that you would like to provide input by entering your full name into the GoToWebinar question box. The information typed in the question box is not your public comments, and you should not type any substantive content in this box. In order to be added to the list to provide oral comments, you must enter your name. If you are a state senator or representative, please also write this before your name. Also note, when you are unmuted and speaking, DES and all other attendees will hear you, but your video feed will not be transmitted. Tara, would you please enable the question function and confirm that it is available to attendees?
It is available, Leah.
Thank you, Tara. So you should now see the question box in the GoToWebinar dashboard. If you want to provide input, please type your name in the question box, then hit enter to submit. We will be monitoring the list of attendees who are submitting this information, and we will place your name in the queue. Remember that if you need technical assistance with getting onto the list to provide comments, Julie Ashton of DES is available by phone at 603-271-7837 or by email at julie.a.ashton, A-S-H-T-O-N, @des.nh.gov. We will now take a short break to enter names onto the list, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, our objective this afternoon is to give everyone who wishes to speak a reasonable opportunity to do so. If your comments will not fit inside the allotted time of 4 minutes, you are more than welcome to enter your name again in the question box to speak at the end of the queue. Also, please be respectful of each other. There may be differing viewpoints represented by the participants of this session, and issues can be emotionally charged. In all cases, I ask that all participants honor the process of being able to hold a public input session to hear differing viewpoints and concerns by extending each other the courtesy and civility. We will begin hearing public input at this time. I will call on individuals one at a time. When called on, please ensure that your microphone is not muted and begin your comments by stating your name.
Leah,
At this Go ahead.
time, we do not have anyone who has added their name to the list.
Okay, so we will hold for a moment to see if anyone would like to ask a question or provide comments. I'll ask again, would anyone like to provide comment or ask a question?
There is still no one who has put in their name, Leah.
Thank you. We'll hold for one more moment. It's good to know that we've explained it so well that everyone's completely on board and understands what we're undertaking here. But seeing no one who wishes to provide comments, I'll prepare to close the session. We do ask that you submit written comments to DES by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, July 25th. They can be emailed or submitted by mail, and directions for submitting written comments are provided in the notice for this session, which is posted on the DES website. Tara, has anyone entered their name?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much, and we will now end the public input session. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to participate, and enjoy the rest of your day.